Welcome to the President's Podcast, brought to you by Delta State University Campus Media Operations and 88.1 WDSW The Trail, where we dive into the heart of our vibrant campus community. Today, DSU President Dr. Daniel J. Ennis and SGA President Hayden Kirkhart sit down in the WDSW studios to discuss the latest updates and topics of interest around our campus. Let's jump in.
Good morning, Dr. Ennis. How was your summer?
My summer was great, Hayden, except that we didn't have enough students here because everybody went home, and it's kind of lonely on a college campus in summer, but we got a lot done getting ready for fall.
With, of course, this being the centennial year, we do have the centennial celebration set to kick off on September 15th, and I was just curious if you were as excited to see as I am what's in that time capsule that was buried in 1975.
I am, and I'll tell you, I have purposely not gone over to look at that stuff until I've had enough time to really absorb it, because I'm very curious about what they put in there, and I want to go over and look at every item. And of course, we have to put things in the new time capsule, so I'm excited about what items they decided were worth preserving, and then that'll help us understand what we should put in for the next 50 years, so that's great. Yeah.
Do you have something in particular that you're putting in the time capsule that you're really excited about?
Yeah, they asked me for a letter. But I'll tell you what I'm putting in there, because no one will know for 50 years once it goes in there, is right before I got the presidency at Delta State, I was an applicant. The tornado hit Rolling Fork and devastated that town. And so suddenly the Delta was in the national news, and I was an applicant to get a job in the Delta and potentially move to the Delta. So I was paying quite a bit of attention. And then when I got the job and I came out here in the spring before I really started and did kind of a meet and greet and all that, I had a few hours and I asked to go down to Rolling Fork and just see it and tour. And there's a lot of Delta State alums in that area, so I met with some alums. And one of the things that you've been very helpful with is I thought we should make sure we remember this town when we do service projects. How can we keep helping? They're part of the Delta too. But while I was walking around, there was a piece of pottery just embedded in the dirt, in the mud. Just some vase or some sculpture. Something had been destroyed. It was unclear what it was, and it was unclear whose it was. It was just in a vacant lot. So I picked up that piece of pottery, and I think I'm going to put that in a time capsule with a note saying that this piece of pottery came from Rolling Fork, Mississippi, in 2023, and with the hope that when they open the time capsule 50 years from now, Rolling Fork will be back and thriving, and that terrible time will be memory. So that's going to be my piece to put in there.
So that is very special. I really do love that, and I didn't think about the fact that whenever you were coming in, kind of just aligned with all of that happening, and I think it really gave you an introduction to how much family is in the Delta and how everybody really comes together whenever one is in need. And I think that's something really beautiful that I hope people will go back and do the research of what occurred in Rolling Fork in 2023 whenever they open that time capsule and find that piece of pottery and, go and discover the beautiful town that it is, and hopefully will continue to grow.
And when they do, they'll see the work of people like you, because one of the things I've been proudest of is you as a leader have helped rally the students to do some service projects down there. So there are houses built in Rolling Fork that are there because Delta State students volunteered their time to go move some 2x4s and load some trucks. And so it's for me not just about Rolling Fork, but about the Delta and the resilience of this place, and like you say, the sort of sense of people rallying together when times were tough. So it's important to remember the sacrifice and the determination of that community, because that's part of the Delta's character.
Right. Well, thank you. And it's a wonderful thing to get to join in with people that are just as passionate. So it's easy to jump in.
Sure.
So what do you see as Delta State's primary strengths?
So I love Delta State's, I guess scrappiness is the right word. All right. We are a smaller college in rural Mississippi, and we have accomplished so many things that you would not have expected a place like this. Academically, athletically, in terms of the outcomes for our graduates, it's when I marvel at the ways that this is a little college that could and does and keeps going. And it really was what attracted me to this place. When I was looking around, I started researching. I said, this place is this, and this place does this, and this place does that. And I think when I talk about Delta State, whether it's at the legislature, with alums, or out in the community, or people just ask me, well, tell me about Delta State, especially people, from prior parts of my life. I love to talk about how scrappy this place is, how this place really accomplishes a lot. And sometimes it does it with a little bit of baling wire, a little bit of spit, a little bit of improvisation, but it gets it done. And that's one of my favorite things about the character of this institution.
I need to start using that term, scrappy, because we definitely we work with what we've got and we make it great. So I love that.
Well, I think it goes back to the students. I like that the Greeks have this wonderful word ethos, which is hard to translate, but it means sort of like the character, the essence. So I think the ethos of the institution imprints on the students. I truly believe this. So we both attract students who might sometimes be overlooked at larger institutions, but then we imprint upon them that same scrappiness. And so I just finished teaching my FYS class, my first year experience class, and I looked around at those freshmen, and they're brand new, and this is their second week of college, and they're just, their heads are still twisting around, they're still figuring it out. But what I want them to do is have that same determination, that same grit, and that same willingness to make do with what you've got. To get, these are the tools I have in front of me. This is the task I have to do. I'm going to figure it out. So that character, that ethos, is both institutional. That's the way Delta State has survived. But I also think it's going to give our students a way to survive in a world where you're going to have to be scrappy and improvisational and resourceful. And occasionally the world is going to underestimate you. It does all of us, and you've got to prove the world wrong when they count you out. And that's Delta State's story, and that's the kind of thing I want our students to leave here with. The knowledge is important, the skills are important, but that kind of grit and hustle is Delta State, and it's Delta State. It's the gift we can give to Delta State students.
And I love that the freshmen are coming in and hearing about that resilience and strength from our university president whenever they just got to this campus. So what is that experience like for you, teaching a first year experience class?
So people ask me a lot. When I went into administration, I was like, I need to keep teaching, because I noticed that some of the administrators I worked for had lost touch with students. So I've taught every semester my entire career, when I became a dean and when I became a provost and now as a president. And I do that partly it's selfish, just for myself, is I never want to go a week without having a direct conversation with an 18-year-old who just got to college, because you can lose track of what they care about and what they worry about.
Say it changes rapidly.
That's
I
the
find
problem.
myself having to connect with 18-year-olds.
Yeah, you're a veteran now. You're an adult to them. You're old school now. I think that one of the funniest things I can tell people about that is students are students. So after the first week, there's no deference to the president. They don't show up more often. They don't work harder. They don't do their homework. They're not at all intimidated. And I think they get over the idea that their instructor's the president, and they treat me like every other instructor, for good or ill. So, I know that when a student misses my class, it doesn't make them get out of bed just because the president teaches their class. They get out of bed because they want to get out of bed. So, when we have a student late for an assignment or misses an assignment entirely, I have to sit down and say, this is not for me, this is for you. So I kind of like it when they relax and just treat me like a regular professor, which also is humbling, because it means, hey, you're nothing special. You're just one of the 5 classes they're taking this semester, and you're not their priority, and that's okay. That's part of figuring it all out. Yeah.
Well, I think it's something that these students are going to be able to look back on, and some of them who might not think much of it now can find something really special in the fact that their university president was their professor. I think that's something really amazing.
You're listening to the Delta State University podcast, brought to you by DSU Campus Media Operations and 88.1 WDSW The Trail, your community-supported independent local radio station. Want to get involved? Contact WDSW for information on memberships and sponsorship opportunities to support our mission. Stay tuned for more engaging insights from SGA President Hayden Kirkhart and Dr. Daniel J. Ennis as we explore what's happening at DSU.
I heard you talking yesterday about how you got a new pair of green shoes, and I was just wondering, I was like, man, I've heard that come out of your mouth a couple of times now. So how large has that green shoe collection grown?
I haven't counted in a while. I think it's approaching 30 pairs, which is more pairs of shoes than any human being really needs. But what I found is I can't skip a day, because the minute I skip a day, someone's going to say, hey, where's the green shoes? So then you need shoes for every occasion. I need shoes for working in the office. I need shoes for walking around campus. I need shoes for going to the gym. And I never want to get caught out not keeping up the brand. So I think I'm where I need to be. But unfortunately, what happened yesterday was I was in a clothing store in Cleveland. I was buying a jacket, a suit coat. And the proprietor, who is a Delta State alum and a lovely fella.
You have to support the alum.
Let's support the alums. He said, hey, do you need some green shoes? And I thought, all right, the president of Delta State walked into a clothing store that also has shoes. And this guy's an alum. I knew he was an alum. I knew his name. And I was like, I can't not buy green shoes, because now he's got a story. Oh, the president bought some green shoes for me. So that thing kind of got out of control. But my wife is ready for it to be over, because that's kind of insane to buy that many shoes. And people need to know I'm not a shoe guy. This is not some weird thing. This all started kind of organically. And when I retire, I'll probably just keep my favorite pairs of green shoes and go back to wearing all the black and brown shoes that I've had retired since I moved to Mississippi.
Well, I'm sure the rest of the green shoes are going to be very prized items.
Maybe I'll donate them to the museum. They can have something in the CAPS building.
That would be amazing. The legacy of the green shoes in the archives.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I'm sure you're going to be wearing your green shoes all out this football season. How excited are you for the games to begin this Thursday?
I'm thrilled. You know, there's something special about a college campus in the fall, and football's a big part of that. The weather gets a little cooler. You know, there's something sort of primal, people getting together. It's almost tribal, right? Rooting for your team. I mean, intellectually, it's silly. You know, who cares, right? These are colleges. They all have athletic programs, but I think it connects to something. I'm sure anthropologists could explain it better than I. It connects to something about this is our community. We're all rooting for this thing to happen. And so I love how in the United States it has become a very peculiar thing that's part street party and part family reunion and part, you know, rock concert, and then it culminates to the great event. And you know, I compliment you and your leadership, the students, part of that, bringing out the students, the student sections, one of my favorite places to be. I don't spend a ton of time there because I don't want to drag it down, but I do pop in and visit the student section and say hello to them a few times. I have to have plausible deniability as to what else they're up to in the student section. I leave that to the public safety folks. But it also is a great thing because you'll see the freshmen who got here a week and a half ago, and then you'll see the alum who graduated from Delta State in 1955, all wanting the same thing to happen, which is a Delta State win. And frankly, in a world where there's a lot of division, a lot of people get divided over things, when you can find something that's common to generations of people, even if it's something as frankly silly as whether the team in green beats the team in blue or not, that's important. I think it gives us, it brings us together, and things that bring people together are worth valuing. But on the less philosophical level, man, oh man, I think it makes me happy when the young men out there do well, because they're happy about it, and then we get joy from it, and you know, eat some good food and listen to music, and the marching band comes out there. All the pageantry is exciting to me. I love it all.
I agree. And as someone who never really followed football before college, Delta State football has definitely taken me by storm and has put me right there in the field, in the sense that I am just as anxious, I feel like, sometimes as the people on the sideline.
Absolutely.
But,
yeah, it's lovely.
Excited for the season. Now, I can recall back my freshman year, my very first football game was the first time that I laid eyes on our amazing Fighting Oakland mascot. And I truly was a little starstruck. I had to go get a picture. It had to be my profile picture for the next 6 months at least.
Sure.
I mean, it was just such a commodity.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, what was your first impression whenever you first saw that Fighting Mighty Okra?
So, you know, I tell you, when it was announced that I was moving to Delta State, you know, I'd been at another university for 24 years. I'm a raised my kids in South Carolina, so we had tons of friends and family, and still do in South Carolina. And the word got out. I was posted on Facebook, and there was an announcement, there was a press release, and all that. And I tell you, the only thing my South Carolina friends and family knew when they heard the phrase Delta State was the Fighting Okra. They weren't even sure what state it was in. Delta State doesn't tell you it's in Mississippi. It just tells you it's in the Delta, and some people know what the Delta is, and many don't. And so immediately, that was the connection point for my loved ones. Was, oh right, that's the okra, right? So I thought, well, that's charming that it's got this odd mascot. Then when I got here, I think the first time I probably saw someone in the suit was at my very first football game, and of course, the kids love the okra and all that, and it's still a calling card. And I think if I travel so much, and I always wear Delta State gear, like on a plane or when I'm in a public place, and even if I'm wearing a suit, I'll wear some Delta State pin or something. But when I'm traveling, if I wear Fighting Okra, just like a pullover or something, people will say, "Oh yeah, the Fighting Okra." So it's a gift. Those I think it was baseball players in the '80s. It was kind of an organic from the bottom up
rumor
thing.
is.
Yeah. I've heard 50 different versions of the story, and I've had two people tell me they were there that were not there. Like, they were not in the same year. So I like the idea that we're never going to know. I like the idea that there's eyewitness accounts of the origin of the okra that conflict, and that's okay, because I like legends and myths. So I'm not sure I'm interested in a sort of a deep dive investigation. I think I love the idea that it's sort of a legendary, figure from the mists of time that came from the students. And I think coming from the students is what really makes me happy, is that this was a grassroots, student-driven thing that made them happy. And in higher ed, that's always important. Like, what do the students want? And so the okra it represents a lot to me, and I love it. It's fun.
Well, I love it too, and you mentioned that kids love it, but something that was really fun for me to see is whenever we brought our Fighting Okra with us to our legislative day this past year, the amount of legislators that wanted a picture.
Yes.
I mean, you truly see it excite people cross-generationally, and that's something so fun. But
well, I'll tell you a story that I will not say a name. There was, at that day in the state capitol, where the okra was walking around making selfies with the legislators, you encountered a legislator that was not a huge Delta State fan, and not particularly someone I'd connected with, and I'd struggled with this legislator a little bit. We just had different views, which happens in politics. So he was not a legislator that I thought, okay, I can go to this legislator for help. In fact, I was kind of worried that this legislator might not be as supportive of Delta State as I wished, and that's part of the world of politics. And I saw that legislator taking a picture with the okra, and I was like, well, maybe that's the way in. Maybe I can get this guy's vote if I bring the okra with me every time. And it made me chuckle to see this person have his heart melted a little bit by the Fighting Okra.
Yeah,
or at least on some level, he wanted a picture with the okra.
So you want to print out of that? You want to put it on your desk?
Yeah,
Remember that every day when you're making your decisions?
Yeah, I was willing to say, look, I'll bring the okra every week if that'll get you to come around to our side on this particular issue.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to close out. As you mentioned before, you're from South Carolina. As someone who is also from South Carolina, I'm intrigued on what was one thing that probably just culture shocked you the most about your move to the Mississippi Delta.
So, there's a real difference between the coastal South, like South Carolina, and the Mid-South, like Mississippi. And there's some things that are the same. Like when I moved out here in the summer of 23, it was blazing hot. And I was unloading my car into the president's house, and someone stopped to chat with me and say, "Welcome to Delta State." They knew who I was. I didn't know them yet. And then that person said, "Well, this heat must be tough on you." And I thought, well, where does he think I'm from? South Carolina has 100-degree summers and droughts and all humidity and all that. But there is a difference. And the longer you're here, as you probably know, the differences are subtle, but they're real. In a good way. And I do think that the Delta is especially hospitable. And I say that not just as president. Obviously, when someone knows I'm the Delta State president, they'll speak to me and react. But there's been plenty of times, especially early on, when I was sort of anonymous. You know, I was just going into Walmart. I wasn't wearing a president name tag, or I was just in town. And people treated me so well, even when they had no idea who I was. And that's really the measure of a community, is not how you treat, you know, people that you perceive to be important or powerful, but how do you treat just regular folks who just, you know, are going about their day. And I think that there's something different about the Delta's approach to people that's so welcoming and warm. And it's been quite charming and quite, you know, inspiring to be here. I mean, it sort of renews your faith that people can be decent, you know, all the time because they're decent, not because there's something in it for them.
And I can definitely agree with you on that, coming here for athletics, but people will say, why did you say? And it's like, well, I mean, the people.
Mm-hmm.
You get so ingrained in the culture of caring for each other and really truly being that family that it's something that I've loved and haven't wanted to leave. So I love to hear that come from you and that you had a similar experience with that.
And no one told me that tamales were going to be a thing.
I had never had
Isn't that the weirdest
a Mississippi hot tamale until I came in. Well, I didn't know that there was different types of hot tamales.
Yep.
I had never had a tamale in the first place.
Well, I had a million tamales like in a Mexican restaurant where I just walk in and it's like, all right, it's the number 5 plate, you know, 2 tamales and rice and beans. And then I get out here and all these people are talking about their tamale recipe and who has the best tamales. And I'm like, so this is a thing. And I've got to say, I'm here for it.
I say
you
they're
put
very
tamales
good.
on my
I've been
plate.
impressed.
I'll eat them. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
I say the one food piece that hit me that I had no clue about, which I guess you could say this is kind of the Delta as a whole all the way into Louisiana, is king cake. I had never heard of king cake.
Yeah, they're really popular.
And whenever I told my friends that were from coastal Mississippi that I had never heard of that, it was the most Yankee thing I could have said. I was told I was not from the South. And I was like, no, listen, if you drive straight, you will get to my hometown.
Yeah.
But yes, there's been a lot of food culture that I've learned and experienced in my time here as well.
It's been fun, isn't it? It's been great. Yeah.
But that is all the questions that I have for you today. But thank you for talking with me.
Well, thank you for spending time with me, one of our great campus leaders, a wonderful student, and one of the best things about Delta State is your leadership of our Student Government Association. Happy to give you as much time as you want.
Well, thank you. I echo that to you and your amazing leadership for our students in university. Thank you.
And thanks to everybody who put this podcast together. I'll come on whenever y'all need me.
That wraps up today's episode of the President's Podcast, brought to you by DSU Campus Media Operations and 88.1 WDSW The Trail. A big thank you to SGA President Hayden Kirkhart and Dr. Daniel J. Ennis for their engaging discussion.